we'll just dive into the agenda, right? Beth, such a pleasure. My fellow, is it New Jerseyite?
New
Right?
Jerseyan, that's fine. Yeah.
New Jerseyan, is that what it is? Yeah. My fellow New Jerseyan. Beth, a quick intro from your side, yeah?
Sure. I am Beth Lawrence. I am a meeting and event planner. My company is Beth Lawrence Meetings and Events. Very easy to remember. I work with nonprofits and impact-based organizations on creating events that are memorable, mission-driven, and also drive ROI and membership in some cases. I usually work on the tech in the back end when it comes to logistics, but I also advise clients on all types of tech on the front end. So I'm very excited to chat and learn from you all.
Amazing, Beth. Beth, I have to ask, how many years in the space, Beth?
Oh gosh, probably if you count, since college, probably about 15 years. But if you count as I do my whole experience, it's been my whole career. So over 20 years.
Very nice. And we'll all know why I asked that in a little bit, right? I'm going to kind of put the pieces together. Really appreciate that. And Nick, my friend, please, a quick background on yourself, yeah?
Yeah, sure. Nick Borelli. I work for an AI company in the event space called Zenus. I have been in the events industry, if we're counting catering. It was the first job I had in 1996. So I've never been out of the events industry. I've always done something within it. Production, worked in trade show company. I have worked for a number of event technology companies, and I had a consultancy for years. And I am a big fan of bringing people together. Any way we can do that. I think the world needs a lot more of us than anyone else lately.
Couldn't agree with you more, Nick. Thanks so much. My friend Michael, it's been a long time. Michael, please tell our audience a little bit about yourself, yeah?
Okay, I'm a public speaker specializing in innovation and trends, and I'm also a former startup guy working on my 5th company right now. So from media to digital marketing to CRM and internet analytics, that's kind of like my background. So now I'm on the circuit talking, of course, about generative AI, which of course is everyone's favorite topic du jour.
Nick can't wait to sink his teeth into that. Yeah, exactly.
There's a lot of demand, and I don't think that we're meeting it. So the more of us helping people, get their foot in the door is the better.
100%. And Michael, Beth, Nick, it's such a pleasure to host you on Fireworks. I guess we'll start with my introduction, right? I'm CEO of Eventcombo. We're 9 years old, based in Jersey City, also based up in Calgary in Alberta. And we're it's funny, I find myself saying this now, we're an in-person virtual hybrid platform, and which has become the norm, even though we're back to 90+% in-person programming. And basically what I'd like to ask all of you is, in your experiences, how would you define 2024? If I were to say, a year in review, we're heading into 2025. Nick, I'll start with you, right? How would you give the highlights of 2024 from your perspective in our industry?
It feels like the post-recovery year. It feels like a full calendar year of primarily post-recovery ideas. So less so on words like pivot aren't coming up as much, and more words are of new technologies and new opportunities, and less trepidation around investment. I mean, I think this is really the first year of growth. And when I look at, in the last few years, which was more about getting our eggs in a basket, I really think we have a growth mentality right now. There's been a lot of acquisitions in the space, a lot of consolidation. These are healthy markers for an industry that is ready to do some new things. So for me, I mean, this is a breath of fresh air. I mean, recently I was attending IMEX. It was the biggest they've ever had. I know a few other factors within that event that had also the most activations they've ever had. Just a lot of bigger swings and just healthy markers. So to me, it's a year of optimism.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more on that, Nick. I think I like the way you put it. It seems to be not the comeback year, but the stabilizing year, right? Post-COVID. I think a lot of things were still somewhat unknown, and people were expecting their own bias-based outcomes. But I think the market has really defined where we are and where we're headed from an AI perspective and all these things. So I love the way you described that as the full-fledged year post-COVID, right? Where the industry is headed. I think it's definitely agree with you on that. Beth, please, would love your take on 2024, a year in review. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I absolutely agree with Nick. I joined the event space in terms of a full-time career after college right in 2009. So it was right when people were saying, we're pulling back and saying, we don't have any budgets. We just need to throw a party. Please just give us food and alcohol. And that's all that we need. And I think, then we had the pandemic, which obviously we could talk about forever. But I think what I really got the pleasure of doing, because I started my company in 2017, I got to help my clients. I got to learn all the virtual and hybrid event technology before it was necessary. Then I helped my clients pivot to virtual, and then I helped them pivot back again. And I really think that this year, to Nick's point, was the first year that people really started making more intentional decisions, knowing that they had that foundation built. And it's sort of recession-proofed our own economy, our own industry. We said okay, we're going virtual. We can't meet in person. How are we going to do this? And we made it happen. So I think a lot of us feel that confidence and know that we can lean on tech a lot more than we used to. And I will say, in terms of my clients, a lot of things that I've seen with sponsorships specifically, I think that sponsors are getting more intentional about where they put their dollars. And I don't mean to say that in a negative way. I think it's great. I think sponsors are, some sponsors are pulling away from larger events and being more intentional and focused and seeing where they can distribute their dollars and make them go the farthest. And then I think that there's some that are really realizing that they have incredible partners in these major events and really doubling down. So I'm interested to see from a sponsorship perspective in the next couple of years what happens, because I work a lot with nonprofits, so that really informs a lot of what I'm able to do with my clients.
Sure. Certainly resonates, Beth. I guess complementing Nick's point, right? I think another area you helped me kind of recognize this as well is and I'll get into it in a little bit, there's a difference in experiences for internal facing events and external facing events, right?
Yeah.
So obviously you've got, two separate use cases there. And what we're seeing by way of trends is different approaches to both for obvious reasons, right? Internal, you've got, destination, you've got awards happening, you've got recognition happening for employees, training and things like that. And then external facing, like you said, on the sponsorship side, there's a lot of additional real estate now that's available in events. And we're seeing clients monetize more from that additional real estate. So there's more capabilities to offer. And it's interesting how internal facing events are leveraging that and how external facing events are also leveraging that. So yeah, really, really appreciate that context. Michael, you're unique in this discussion, in this panel, because you are, present from different dynamics, right? You're a speaker, tech,
Right.
and the space, obviously, right? You're a seasoned professional in the space. So from your perspective, how was 2024 from an evolution standpoint? Are speakers being utilized in the same way as previous years, or did you notice anything different? And what's your take on 2024?
Well, I'm going to start off by saying that I think in 2024 we are in a waiting room, just like your event space. We're in a waiting room, and we're waiting for major disruption to come, and it's coming in spades. We have two huge waves going on at the same time. I don't need to tell you that we are in the midst of societal upheaval brought on by social media, an invention of the tech industry, and then at the same time we also are facing this massive wave that is larger than the internet ever was, and that is generative AI. These two things within the next 5 to 10 years are going to make society look like nothing it has seen before. So I think that, and remember, events are a mirror of our market. So whatever that market is going through, the trials and tribulations, I always say, wherever there's upheaval, there is opportunity, right? Because that's what it's all about. That's what innovation is all about. And we're going to need it in spades because, things are being disrupted. So if you look at the macro trend of the industry, let's take the poster child of America's conferences, the Consumer Electronics Show, CES.
Right.
CES, 6 years, over 6 year period, CES attendance is down 24%, and sponsorship is down even more, 40%. So this is our bellwether in this country. And I think that that's what we need to see. Yet at the same time, at the micro trend level, as Nick mentioned, the meeting planners are all optimistic. 72% are going to increase their spend. But that's probably because, as Sarush mentioned, there is a bifurcation in the market. The virtual meetings are taking off because of the pandemic and Zoom, but the external meetings are going to probably see a decline because virtual meetings are becoming the accepted norms for meeting with people face to face. There's going to be always people who are, like Vet mentioned, just give me food and let me meet some people, right?
Salespeople.
But then you have that, right? Give me food.
Oh, they need.
Put
Put them in a gymnasium, give them some carrots. They don't care.
100%. As long as they appear.
Where's the shrimp? Remember in the dot-com boom days, if there was no shrimp, the company was going to be out of business.
Up until 2008. Yeah. After 2008, I remember a lot less shrimp.
That was
God, you guys are bringing back memories. No, Michael, really, really appreciate that. I think change is the message, right? I think there's a lot of change that's happening, and that's always the case, right? But particularly how our event industry professionals are adapting to that change, not only adapting, but also spearheading, leading that change, I think is really, really interesting. What's a fact is that events are now top of mind, more so than ever before, for sales departments, for marketing departments. And what we've seen is an increased budget go towards event programming. So obviously that's a great thing for industry, but it also tells you that there's a redistribution of the channels that organizations use to get their messaging and content across. So traditional media is obviously there. You've got social media. I think the term that I'm gonna start coining is you've got event media, right? So you've basically got events being utilized as media, and for us that's super exciting. And I'm sure my fellow panelists will agree. It means good things for us. But moving responsibly into that is really, really important, so that we don't spoil this channel and end up upside down 2 years from now because we didn't appreciate it. We took it for granted, because for the first time there's a lot of C-suite folks that are looking at events as a meaningful channel for distribution. But if we don't do a good job, then obviously we'll miss the opportunity to have events remain a mainstay. So anyway, just adding some color to your points, Michael, is that I'm recognizing these pivotal shifts in our industry, and it's super, super exciting. And having said that, Marijn, welcome. Really, really good to see you, my friend. Love your background. Marijn, just to mention, we just did our 2024 recap, and I'm going to ask you to give us your recap for 2024 and then lead us forward, Marijn, please.
Although I'd love to, I have a feeling I might say things double. So how about we save everyone some time? We dive right into the 2025 predictions, and then we can take it from there. We'd love to pitch in there as well. Yeah, of course. I would love to obviously also hear like what people have experienced so far that are joining in right now. Like, what have your experiences been for 2024? And whilst you share that with the rest that's joining in today, we would like to have a look at one trend that each panelist predicts will become central to events in 2025. Obviously, there's some from 2024 that we take with us, but there are also some new innovations on the horizon. Michael, can we start with you, and would love to hear from you. What do you predict will change the game in 2025?
Well, I think that, and I'm going to come from it since I was the founder of a digital media company called Iconocast, and we hosted a huge conference at Fort Mason in San Francisco called Web Attack, featuring Dennis Rodman driving in on a Harley Davidson motorcycle. I'm a troublemaker. I don't like the status quo, and I believe that from where I sat when I sold sponsorships, and we sold 1.8 million in the second conference here in New York, is that we're going to have to deliver as an event production standpoint for the sponsors. The sponsors want more ROI, and I think that that's the opportunity, and that's where the disruption lies. I believe that we want to see more proof that this channel works because there is two things going on at the same time. The sponsors are there to get lead generation, as you well know, and from where I sit, most of the people in AI have been promising, oh, we're going to close the loop, we're going to, but that's just CRM warmed over. That's not what I want. The buzz in the AI industry is workflow, and I believe that as Sarush mentioned, you're an extension of the marketing department, so you gotta get into my workflow and help me, and that's where I think the disruption lies.
Love it. Nick, how about you? What can you add to that?
I must have some partial access to Michael's crystal ball. I'm looking at my notes, and I said I was going to start with bottom line ROI for stakeholders, which is very much what you said. I mean, I've been looking at a survey I got access to from an organization called Evolio. A guy named Joe Federbush runs it, and he did a big survey of exhibitors, hundreds of them, and he's got 57% of them spending the same next year, and every one of their costs going up. So what does that mean? And that means that 72% they're going to scale back on shows, 60% are going to send fewer staff, 58% are reviewing their strategy. All that sounds like upheaval and a fresh set of eyes. And a fresh set of eyes is macro good because the winners will get invested and the losers won't. It'll shake out some, shake the tree. But I think bottom line is that anyone in sponsorship sales, and this was at a sponsorship sales roundtable I was at, they're all desperate for ROI, and they're all desperate for something that they can go up to their leadership with and say, this is why I'm defending my event, because they have to defend all these dollars now. There are a lot of habits were broken. Why do we do the show? Oh, it says something if we don't. Well, all right, we didn't have the show for a while, so maybe it doesn't. So now it really comes down to technologies that can help improve that ROI. I mean, stuff we do at Zenith, we do it for all kinds of different reasons, for speaker selection, all these other things. Where we're finding everyone that's using us the most ends up being for exhibitor data points, not just lead gen, but what are the markers that explain why the lead gen was not as good as we thought, or why this one worked better than others. And using AI to be able to discern footfall traffic for each booth, it ends up being the use case that is easily the number one use case for what we're doing. I met another AI company called Backtrack, and they're doing the similar things that you see in Zoom meetings where there's recording of what's taking place and then notes. Well, this does that, but for trade show booths, and it pulls all the information of the context of the conversations into your CRM. Every minute of the time that exhibitors are spending are so valuable, and they're so under scrutiny. To throw away any of that valuable resource seems like a waste. So they're down to that. They're looking at the minutes that they're spending and how optimized they can be. So yeah, I mean, I start with the external stakeholders because I follow the money.
Yeah, I love it. And event professionals have a real chance to be obviously proactive there and making sure that those exhibitors actually understand the return on investment, and next year hopefully increase their budget because they understand what comes out of it. Beth,
A lot
how
of
is this for you?
for granted, so just don't take them for granted.
Very true.
Yeah, I would echo the same thing, not to take the dollars for granted. And I had, we hear a lot about custom journeys, and a lot of the things that I see have it applied to attendees, but I think that there's a real opportunity for custom journeys to be applied to a sponsor too, in a much more effective way. I think that there's a lot of matchmaking tools, and there's an opportunity for more intentional sponsorship dollars spent. I think what happened is we looked at the event business model. A lot of my clients were looking at their business models of their events over the pandemic, and the hybrid model and the virtual model. And I think some of them shifted more toward the attendees being more funding the event than the sponsors in some cases. And then I think they had to they realized that they had to kind of swap that out again when we came back to hybrid in person. So I think that there's also a need to look at your event business model and say, who really is it? Where is the money coming from? And how do we truly deliver on that? I don't think that we need to neglect any stakeholder experience, but I think sometimes we pay so much attention to the attendee journey that we really neglect the sponsor journey. And I also echo, I love the idea of more analytics that are provided, not just the data. A lot of times you get a data set, which is great, but then it takes so much time to analyze it and really truly get out the meat of what you're looking for, that I think there's a lot of benefit to putting more resources into the sponsorship journey in that specific way.
Couldn't agree more. Sarush, anything not return on investment related?
Sure.
We'd love to hear.
Of course. I mean, everyone has great insight into this, and hearing all of you speak just reminds me of why we got into the space, why I got into the space in the first place. It's so exciting to hear these different POVs. I think there's several touch points here. I think one is the increased interest in meetings. So, we're all talking about ROI, we're talking about sponsor, interest activations and things like that. But a real tangible metric and a real tangible activity to qualify the success of a sponsor, sellers, are how many meetings were booked, in the event. And what I'm finding is that, and this is one of my predictions for 2025, and we've seen this for a number of years now, but I think in 2025, this will be accelerated, is that meetings are being embraced far more than they were in the past. And what I'm calling it is meetings are micro events, and events are macro meetings, right? So just to repeat, because it's a bit of a tongue twister for me to even say it, but meetings are micro events and events are macro meetings. And that's really the way we're finding the most intelligent event managers embrace meetings technology, which, shameless plug, which we have. And so what I'm finding is that every meeting has a dollar value, right? Every meeting has a dollar value. And now you have something that you can qualify, you can quantify against a dollar value. So how many meetings happened as a result of IMEX? Or how many meetings happened as a result of XYZ event is a good measure of how successful or unsuccessful your event was. And now you have data to give to your sponsor to say, hey, you had 26 meetings. This was the average duration. And now let me just take that backwards. The meetings were executed based on AI matchmaking, right? Just to make things easier. And a lot of the data was also measured with AI matchmaking, something Nick mentioned earlier. So I think meetings are going to become a lot more important in our event world. And I think that the more we embrace their presence in an event, I think the more success we'll deliver. And it'll also weed out the unsuccessful events. There's buyer, seller, trade shows where the buyers don't even show up, right? And obviously I won't mention any names, but there's a lot of time wasted when you fly, you book a hotel, you prepare your team to meet with buyers or sellers, and there's no shows. How can we eliminate those friction points and continue scaling? So I think meetings is a big part. Obviously, matchmaking is a big part. AI plays a critical role in this. But one of my major predictions for 2025 is I think that meetings will be top of mind. And I think that'll kind of dictate where the events go. Well, I mean, why do we go to events? We go to events to meet people, right? And so without the meeting component at a granular level, tracking it, quantifying it, I think we're just there to, have some drinks and eat some shrimp, right? So that's kind of my take on 2025.
Yeah, great. Love that take. Yeah, I mean, in terms of that combination of on one end, trying to find how can we deal with the economics that are going on, less budget, but still wanting to do the same, if not more. Trying to find ways to optimize for ROI, making sure you have the analytics in place in order to prove the ROI to all the stakeholders that are involved, optimizing that journey, but also focusing on the networking. And I would like to add to that the fact that technology is getting to a point where the potential of it is great, but the adoption rate is very much behind still. And that is something where I would love to, but I also think we will see more technologies that actually will ensure that onboarding process is as easy as possible, where, for instance, they use AI or other tools to make it, for instance, prompt-based to set up your whole registration platform. This is my event, this is how many people, this is the type of sponsors I have, make it happen for me. And that way save a lot of time for event professionals. I would love to see that in 2025, but we'll see. Maybe Sarush, you can do something about that. I would love to also...
I'm sure he can.
I would also love to switch it up a little bit, because we've been talking about a lot of trends, what has been in 2024, what's coming in 2025. But let's do a little bit of a fun twist for now. In the meantime, for the audience who is listening in, what are kind of the topics that we just discussed, the trends that you also see, and which trends would you add? Would love to hear from you. In the meantime, we'll do a quick show quiz, 2 truths and a lie. So we would love to ask all the panelists quickly, give us 2 truths and 1 lie, and we'll decide which one it is and see if we can guess the truth. How about Sarush? We start with you.
Oh my goodness, Marijn, I was just thinking, I was hoping that you wouldn't pick me first, and you picked me first. So I sent you the wrong signals, man. But I appreciate that. So let me just make sure I understood. 2 truths and 1 lie. Is that that's the direction? Yeah. So yeah, again, thanks for putting me on the spot. So the first one I'll start with is that it is possible to have a unlimited customizable registration form. That's my first statement. It is possible to have an unlimited customizable registration form where I can have so much conditional logic and everything, that is possible. That's my first statement. Second statement, you can have a happy event manager at any event. I guess that's a anyone. The third one is
I think that's the lie.
Everything will never, Mark.
That was the obvious one, right? But I'm gonna trip you guys up here. Integrations are always seamless and easy. I think I reversed it on you, Marijn, but those are my 3 statements, and I'm gonna stick to those.
I would love to hear from the audience who's joining in. 1, 2, 3, maybe a combination. Let us know in the comments what you think. Nick, I'm leaving it up to you. What is the lie here?
Oh man, I'm just gonna do some on me that are fun and don't have anything to do with anything tough. So, all right, I never went to college. Last year, I sold 30,000 comic books of my own, and then lastly, I'm a big Minnesota sports fan.
I know which one. I know which one. Knowing what I know of Nick.
Let us know in the comments. 1, 2, or 3. See if you can get it right. Beth, how about you?
So mine were about me as well. I thought it would just be fun. So I once had a project lead leave an event in the middle without telling me. I once biked 18 miles at one of my own events, and I have been doing ballet dance my whole life.
Ooh, some good ones. I think they're all possibilities. 1, 2, or 3. Let us know in the chat. Michael, how about you?
Okay, 2 truths and a lie. All right, let's see. I was born in Aruba. I studied economics in the Bronx. And whenever I get to Monte Carlo, I always hit the blackjack tables.
Ooh, also a few good ones. Let us know if you know the answer. 1, 2, or 3 in the comments. Sarush, can you tell us which one what were the lie?
So 2 of mine were lies. On the registration. I had 2 lies, and just an anecdote on that, right? Like we get the clients, and we see in the market, everyone marketing, seamlessly. We market it too, but the fact is that no 2 integrations are alike, and it is always requiring additional analysis than what the stakeholders think, right? So just want to be transparent about that, and it's always fun because everyone learns.
Hey, Sarush.
Yeah,
Hey,
Mike,
Sarush,
yeah.
if you told a lie that you told two lies, then those
Yeah.
are the truths.
Third lie.
Yeah, exactly. I should have done what you guys did, which was keep it personal. But
Love
but
it.
again, Mariah put me on the spot, right? So I
Oh,
can't
good.
go
Oh,
with
good.
but yeah,
Nick,
but no, I appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
which one was it?
yeah, I have only lived in Minnesota for 3 years. I'm not gonna, abandon my Pittsburgh sports fans. It's just too attractive to let go. So, not a Minnesota fan. Didn't go to college. Was doing web design in the '90s, and there wasn't much of a need to get into marketing to teach me something that was done, that was already pretty much over. So I worked for a marketing agency as a consultant when I was in high school. Built my high school's first website, and the people I worked with, they were marketers, and they were really good at jingles and alliterations. And I was like, this doesn't seem like the future. I think I'm gonna just do my own thing.
Stupid. Rightfully so. Beth, which one was it for you?
The lie was ballet. I've been I did hip hop for most of my life, but never did ballet. I did have a project lead leave an event without telling me or the client. They texted me from the airplane, so we just had to figure it out. This was day 2 of a 4-day event.
That's a lot of biking.
I did. So I when I worked for a startup here in Philly, I pitched this open streets healthy concept where we close the streets to vehicular traffic and we encourage people to walk and ride their bikes and skateboard, do whatever they want to explore the city. And they wound up kind of calling my bluff and closing 10 miles of streets. And I worked with the company that I was working with on being like the premier food sponsor. But in order to get to all of the activations that I scheduled along the 10-mile route, I had to just keep biking. So I wound up biking 18 miles with the VP of the company.
Lanyard flying around, and
Yeah.
clipboard.
Yeah.
Visualize that. Yeah.
All right, Michael.
All right. Well, I was indeed born in Aruba, and I did go to Fordham in the Bronx. So, however, when I get to
No
Monte
blackjack.
Carlo, the first thing I do is not to gamble. I hit a pan bagnat and I have a glass of champagne. That's what I really do.
Oh, that's a good love right there. All right, love it. And now with the switch up, let's get back to business because we have the most important topic left for last. Obviously, we would love to dive deeper into actual tactic to make the most out of 2025. So how can event professionals actually ensure they can embrace those trends we just mentioned and get a head start for 2025? I would say return on investment was a very big topic. So from the panelists, raise your hands if you would like to pitch in and give some tips and tricks to the audience, how they can make the most, how they can actually prove that return on investment, for instance. Not all at the same time. All right, Nick, let's go.
I mean, I would say we collect a ton of data. We don't even realize it. Maybe get more, but more importantly than that, have a data strategy and use it so you know what you're going to do with it once you have it. I really think that data is the ROI answer, but it's also just listening. Like a lot of what's been asked of organizers is to know everything, and that's very stressful. There's a lot of opportunities to co-design with your attendees, your community, when you listen to them, and listening to them is really just analyzing your data. What's great now is that AI allows us specifically, there's a few, like we have a vision AI product that allows you to look at the data and trends. There's also generative AI that allows you to sift through the chicken was dry and my chair was squeaky and why did it rain, all of that, and find the real gold in that dirt. And there's awesome stuff. Like one of the things I was on a practical level explaining to a workshop this week was take the last 5 years of your post-event survey data and cut and paste it into generative AI and say, what is a challenge that is brought up consistently that we've never solved? And if you find that out, you go, oh, we have to do this now. Or show me in our post-event survey where we violated our mission, vision, and values. Show me 5 things from this that can help us generate more revenue. 5 things that we could fix that doesn't cost us anything. Like, to be able to sort those into that, it is the post-con reports we should be doing, and it's the action items that allow us to grow and make less guesses. The gut of the event planner is as good as anything other than truth. Like, as far as feelings go, the best feelings. Facts are a little bit better than feelings, and like that's the other 10%, but between the 90% of what you know in your gut. So I'm never telling event organizers that they don't know their business. They do. but there's nuance, and the nuance is where the growth is.
I would agree with
Such a-
that. Sorry,
yeah.
as an event organizer, I absolutely agree with what Nick said. I think sometimes in the past, I think event organizers got overwhelmed with data, and there's so much opportunity now to really dig into it and look at what it's telling you and remove that feeling from it. Remove the feeling of reading, even from an event organizer perspective. Sometimes you read something like the chair was squeaky and the why did it rain? And you think like, ugh, you roll your eyes. But when you dig deeper, there may have been more pain points that made that rain the most annoying thing that happened that day. So I absolutely agree with what you say. And I think listening is absolutely true. I think sometimes we have our own goals and as clients have their own goals, but every single stakeholder in your event has their own goal. They have their own reason for being there, and you have to make sure that you can really truly fulfill that reason for them being there. Otherwise, you're not going to truly enter into a mutually beneficial partnership, which is where the ROI comes from.
Mic drop right there. And also very much in line with the personalization. Beth, I know you had something prepared for that. So like, if you want to dive deeper a little bit on the AI part and no? All right, all good. Then the next part on the list was obviously also meeting, like the micro and macro meetings and networking. Sarush, maybe you can give some tangible insights how event professionals can actually create those meetings of the future in 2025.
I guess one recent experience comes to mind to kind of dive into that. I think hyper personalization, right? So we all know, when folks are registering, there's different pathways for attendees. I mean, you've got sponsors, they'll have a different registration experience. You've got employees, you've got, buyers, sellers. Every event has multiple attendee personas, right? And for each attendee persona, you curate a different experience. Well, we're all familiar with different registration workflows for different attendees, but to go deeper into that, as far as who's meeting with who, which meal preferences are being satisfied, this is where, to Nick's point and to Beth's point, this is where data is playing a big role now. Is because now for the first time, you have much easier access to that data at your disposal because the attendees have very, generously given you that insight. And then how do you kind of map the two together? How do you bridge that information to the actual servicing part together? I think that's where AI comes in. I think that's where platforms like ours come in, where I will see my own event experience and it'll be different than Beth's. Why? Because I came in through a different pathway. I'm a different persona than Beth. Having said that, there's a common denominator between me and Beth. Even though we're two different attendee types, we're both attending the same event. So you've got to cover both the horizontal event experience and what I call it the vertical event experience, which is very personal to me. From the moment I scan my QR code, I get my badge, to the exit towards the airport, I've got to feel like this event was for me. And data is the common denominator. Data is what will allow you to give your attendees that experience. So I think as event innovators, as event tech solution providers, it's our responsibility to kind of offer those solutions. And I think that's where we're seeing our clients who are very sophisticated taking that bull by the horn and going in that direction. And that's really exciting for us because, again, what I said earlier, events are the new medium, the new channel. And I think they'll become the most powerful channel. And if you don't do hyper-personalization, then you're missing the opportunity. So that's my context around it. I think hyper-personalization is the word I'm going to trademark.
Love it. Michael, would you like to add any tangible, actionable tips for event professionals that want to make the most out of these trends in 2025?
Yeah, all right, Moraine. Well, look, as a trend watcher, I need to fight the misconception that trends follow calendar years. They don't. So what I say here is I'm going to give you the big picture view, the way I look at things. And of course, I look at things a little differently than most people do. So what I see as the biggest opportunity in the event industry, the most disruptive force that lurks around the corner, besides generative AI, of course, Ozempic. And I know you're going to say, what the hell? What did he just say? Did he say Ozempic? Yes, I said Ozempic. Okay. Look at it as a parallel or as a proxy of what can happen to any industry. After 40 years, Jenny Craig went out of business. Okay. The weight loss surgery is down 25%. So these are things that to me, and I don't know if you've seen the articles, but it's curing everything. Heart disease, rheumatism, and now the latest I read is that it is going to fix bad osteoarthritis knees. This tells you, especially if you are in the in-person event space, that we're going to have a lot of healthy people who are willing to walk those booths that you're building out there. So to me, I mean, that's my look at it. And I've told hoteliers, I said, hey, you know what? There's two huge Uber trend waves that are affecting all trends. And the one that I am speaking about most is, of course, time compression, the acceleration of life. Everything is going faster these days. I need to tell you that. So we're suffering from too busy disorder. We multitask all day long. We want instant gratification. These are all three trends that are affecting events, okay? No one has time. Everyone is multitasking. No one is paying attention. And you need to somehow get through to this person. The other trend, the other Uber trend, is what I call generation ecstasy. And that means that, we are living in an experience economy, and events have to stay on top of that. The events. So that's why you're seeing all of these cities expanding on their expo floors and building out their exhibition halls. But yet at the same time, that ROI, most of these conference spaces are losing money, 80% are losing money. So, that tells you a lot also about the business, right? So we are there because we want to network and we want to meet, but we don't have much time and we want better experiences. So for the online portion and the offline portion, we want the same thing. We want things that indulge us. And that is, where you're going to face a far more demanding attendee in the future who wants a heck of a lot more. And those are the things that I think are coming down the pike, not just necessarily in 2025, but for the foreseeable future.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Obviously, we are close to the hour. So if anyone who's joining in today would like to ask any questions, the chat is open for you. Like there's an icon of the chat bubble. So just leave your questions you would like to ask right now, and we'll make sure to answer all of them.
I was reading through the chat, a couple of interesting questions. I think Nick, by the way, you're entertaining me simultaneously on the chat side. But yeah, Marian, please go ahead. I was going to. Jane asked a couple of questions to answer those, but yeah. Mm-hmm.
Very true. I just saw a new question from Jane. She asked if we had to make just one tech investment next year, what's the absolute must-have? I see Nick already generative AI for ideation. Very good answer there. Beth, what would you say? What is kind of the tech that is a must-have for you next year?
I think for me, the type of events that I do, I mentioned in the notes, this company that I have been advising, Evenda, that they're not the only one out there, but they're really working on solutions to make it easier for smaller events and more niche events to find sponsors, and also for sponsors to be able to intentionally spend their dollars and be able to see more of what's out there. So I would be excited to see more of that for my particular client.
I get it, man.
What was that company called, Beth? I'm sorry, I couldn't hear it. What was the company called?
Sorry, my keyboard. Also, I'm having tech issues myself this morning, but I wrote it in the chat.
It's in the chat.
Okay, all right. Very good.
I think,
Thank you.
Jane and Avery, just looking back at the chat, Jane asked about smaller events working with limited budgets and how they can compete with the bigger players. I would, Jane, first of all, that is a real problem and a real good question. I would say that you don't have to compete with the big players, because just because they're bigger doesn't mean they're better. The bigger events, the bigger organizations have the same challenges as any size event. So I would focus more on delivering quality, delivering tangible, results based on data. So it doesn't really come down to, the size of your event. I think it just comes down to the programming that you're putting together, and of course the tools that you're using for that programming. That's how I would kind of approach that, Jane. And Avery asked about sustainability. Just want to touch on that too. So we're seeing increasingly from our clients that they're using our document management tool, right? And I'm not plugging our document management tool, but basically what it does is it eliminates the need for distributing any physical information. So folks are using that, and you can distribute that through event apps, through the event website, through email. So what we're finding is that we've seen an increased adoption in digital content being distributed. And one of the benefits of that isn't only the fact that you're saving trees, but you're also capturing more data. Because now, with permission, I know what Nick downloaded, right? I know that Nick is interested in the latest, SL 550, right? And so sustainability has many advantages. One of them is data. And I just want to mention that, Avery. But wonderful questions I'm seeing in the chat. I'm not even able to keep up. Nick, I love you, man. Love your POV on things. But yeah, those are my points. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And then two best point indeed. Comparing that bigger and smaller event, niche micro events are absolutely trending in 2025 as well. But is that something are you also planning more micro events yourself?
I think even within the conferences that I plan, as all of us, there's multiple different types of stakeholders that need to get multiple different things. And a lot of the clients that I work with, they have one major event where they bring everyone together. And so that is definitely something that I'm seeing where there's even sessions or optional, community trips or other opportunities just for specific types of stakeholders at these events. It used to be, and we still see it, like ancillary events that pop up around larger conferences, but I'm seeing even clients designing those types of events for particular stakeholders within their conference journey. Thank you, Nick.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's something that you see more and more, even when you have like a big industry event for our industry. Like next week is completely crazy because there's a lot of industry events, at least in Europe, all over the place, all in the same week. But then even in those bigger events around that, you have like a small meeting gathering for a specific subgroup within that audience. It's a very powerful way to kind of lift on it.
Sorry, I think there's a delay. And I think that it also, when you're speaking about personalized journeys, for some attendees, smaller events are more approachable for them when they're trying to network. 30,000, 40,000 people seems insurmountable to some. So I think those niche events are also a way, if you're a smaller organization, to get people in to into the fold, and then maybe you can kind of get them into more of your other events that you do and grow your events more organically that way. But don't try to cast a big net if you don't need to.
I think that we're so focused, and for good reasons, on inclusivity in our events that we don't realize that for select groups, exclusivity is really valuable. And you can have satellites for different personas. Like one specifically that I found to be successful is exclusive tangential events for the C-suite. Like they're not necessarily looking to meet anyone. They want their peers, and they want to breathe a select air. They contribute and have a lot of value to the overall organization. They're frequently at the events. You just don't see them. They're at dinners the whole time. So if you can realize that this is a pattern that takes place, you can harness it, and you might be able to harness them for a period of time. And the nice thing about that group, for instance, if you design for them specifically, is they don't care what the ticket price is. So like there's some fringe benefits of that. As long as you could provide them, you might have 30,000 people at your event. They just want to meet 30 people, period. If you can have those 30 people, you get to say the CEO of this company was there and that company, and you get to see if you can enrich your community with their voice at select moments, because their ROI is basically 2 hours for 30 people. Pretty easy to do. You just have to think about them, and you have to walk them out in their shoes.
Yeah, very true. I love that example. And Jacob asked, I think, the last question for today. He said, are there any exciting tools or platforms you're personally looking forward to using? I want to ask this to Michael, because you mentioned, obviously, those key trends. Is there any technology that can help you deal with that overexcited S&D type that loses track of time all the time? What kind of technology can you put into play there?
Well, I wanted to add something to what Nick was saying, is that those CEOs are all having their private dinners and having shrimp, but they're paying for it themselves. So anyway, so where I sit, and as a former startup guy myself that really focused on the user experience, to me, when every company is at parity, which is imminent, we're going to have generative AI to say, code me the ultimate interface, write me the best marketing plan. Everyone is going to be at parity. What sets you apart? The user experience. How are you getting things accomplished? I want you to work with my workflow. So when I look at these 24,000 AI tools that we have today, can you believe it? 24,000. After 28 years in digital marketing, there are only 14,000 tools. So in just 2.5 years, the AI market has exploded way beyond belief. And that is a proxy for what's coming. But what I see is just a sea of sameness, nothing really that stands out. What I really want is the more of the workflow-driven diagrammatic approaches to UIs. So I'm going to recommend you check out Mind Studio if you want to see about how to build a custom chatbot, which 48% of users in a Verge study said they're interested in, and that's a huge market from where I sit. The number of Upwork contractors has exploded 2,000% since the pandemic because people are interested in custom chat GPTs, and that's where the action is, right? But there is no tool like Mind Studio for building AI apps that I can see out there yet. Build Ship is the opposite side, how to build an app and then ship it. Build Ship, it's perfect. It's the woman from India started up called Narini. She's brilliant. Those are apps that to me are about that workflow maximization. And you might want to look at Linear or Highlight AI or maybe Narada. These are all apps that are on the fringes that are coming, have gotten lots of money, and are there to help us. But I still want a much better customer experience, and that is what my crusade is all about. I'm the innovator. I want innovation. And I want it now.
I can absolutely relate. Thank you so much for answering that question, Michael. Really appreciate it. Thank you, Nick, Beth, Sarush, and Michael for joining us today. I really appreciate your input. I hope the audience enjoyed it as much as I did, although I joined a little bit late, but I'm glad I could join eventually. We want to thank everyone who's joining in today for listening in, for tuning in, for asking your questions, being an active participant. We really appreciate it. Obviously, make sure to follow all these amazing panelists, including myself, on LinkedIn. Connect with them because there's a lot more where that came from. And I know at least 3 of them very well on LinkedIn, and looking forward to meeting the 4th a bit better on LinkedIn as well. There's tons of value there in terms of the content they're sharing, so don't miss out. Reach out, connect with them. I'm sure if you have any burning questions that haven't been answered today, they'll be more than happy to answer them in a direct message as well. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
Looking forward to the next one.
See you all soon. Awesome. Thank you so much, guys. Such a privilege to be with all of you. See you all soon. Thank you. Thanks.
Take care. Bye-bye.